Welcome to Patriots to the Core. I'm Thad Forrester. This podcast exists because of my little brother, Mark Forrester. He was angered by the attacks on 9/11, so he joined the military to help rid the world of terrorists. On September 29, 2010, he was killed on his first deployment. From his death notification to the dignified transfer ceremony, his viewing, funeral, and subsequent memorials, I was amazed at the new world of warriors we met. These patriots have become close to our family and been huge supports. They stood out because of their willingness to voluntarily fight evil. They believed in freedom. Because of their actions, I started this podcast to interview great Americans who serve their country and communities. Thank you for tuning in. Well, why don't we get to Takur Ghar time frame? And by the way, I have the book Robert's Ridge, written by Malcolm McPherson, I think, and I've had it for a long time, probably since 2011. And so it's been a long time since I read it. So I recently downloaded it as an audiobook and I'm listening to it again. I haven't finished it yet, but especially after reading your book and then listening to several podcasts that you've been on lately, Lori. I don't know if they've all been recent for you, but I've listened to several lately with you, and then mixing that with that book. There's so much out there, and I just correct me where I'm wrong if I mess up here. So John was a combat controller, and at this point in time, he was with the 24th Special Tactics Squadron out of Pope
Yes,
Air Force Base, which is Pope Field, Bragg, whatever now.
whatever it is now.
So they are the ones that deploy with like SEAL Team 6, or
Yeah,
I'm guessing maybe Delta too. I don't know, but
yeah. They
okay.
they deploy with all those top tier 1 units, whether they're American or Australian or English, whatever. They deploy with all the tier 1 units.
Okay. So this team that John was with on this mission, which I guess you'll have to kind of correct me. I refer to it as Takur Ghar sometimes. Sometimes I say I think this was Operation Anaconda. Is that right? What we know it as?
I think the whole thing as in the whole is Operation Anaconda, and then Takur Ghar was just is part of it.
Okay. This team, the SEAL team that John was with, had he done any work with them before at all?
I'm not positive. I know he had done training for definitely he had done training with them at the beach prior to them deploying for several months. I knew he was there with them at that point in time. Whether he had done any work with them prior to that, I don't know.
Okay. He definitely hadn't
Yeah.
deployed with them. He hadn't been on any real operations with them.
That I know of, no, but
Okay.
I don't know all of his deployments, and really that Takur Ghar was the his first and only like no shit battle. So I know he had gone on different missions, but it never ended up like that. So in a firefight.
Back to the notification and that time period right after his death, what did the Air Force tell y'all? And did the Navy tell you anything? So what did they tell you about Mark John's death at that time?
Initially, immediately, we never heard anything from the Navy, but which I think is normal. I think your person's service would be the one really talking to you. But right out of the gate, we were told they landed on the top of the mountain. They took fire. Well, that Neil fell out. That they had to go. They had to go back up with a second helicopter. They took fire. Or they that So normally the combat controller is supposed to be like the last one out of the helicopter, but because this second try attempt at landing was ad hoc to go try to find Neil, they just came out however they were lined up. And so the team leader went out first, Slavinsky, and he post hold because the snow was like thigh deep. Post hold, fell forward, and John stepped over him, and then he went and did his thing. But I forgot what you even asked me. Oh my God. Uh
Well, I think it was just what they told you. Yeah,
oh,
what the Air Force initially told you.
so they told us that he stepped over Slavinsky, took out the two enemy fighters at the bunker, and then was shot and killed. That was it. So basically, hey, yay, he killed two people, but now he's a footnote. And maybe that's all they knew at that point in time, the Air Force. I know the
Yeah.
Navy knew more by that time, at that point in time, but maybe the Air Force didn't know.
Did any of his teammates, whether they were Air Force or Navy,
Did any of them contact y'all and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I was there"? Tell you anything?
No, not in the beginning. They never heard anything from the Navy. I mean, my mom kind of forced herself on Slavinsky and them, because back then we didn't know what we know now. So she was just very supportive and just, thankful for all he did, blah, blah, blah. But she got herself invited to Slavinsky was having I want to say it was a Memorial Day picnic at his house, a barbecue. And she had kind of gotten in touch with his wife, and the wife invited her to the barbecue. So she went, and she told me she was very upset and disappointed afterwards. She said, number one, Slavinsky's seemed very uncomfortable with her being there. And the other guys who had been on the team who were there at the barbecue avoided her the entire time. Like if she went outside, they went inside. If she went inside, they went outside. Like they physically avoided her. So yeah, they never could talk to us during the air. No, yeah, I think it was the Air Force cross. Either that or it was the ship dedication. I don't think he was at the Air Force cross, so it had to be the ship dedication. And again, we were at that point in time still, oh, thankful for all you did, blah blah blah. And so my dad took Slavinsky into a back room, and we're there maybe a half an hour or something, and we've never found out what they talked about. And Dad passed away, and 2 years after John, so what they talked about will always remain a mystery
Oh
because
my.
I wouldn't believe a word out of Slavinsky's mouth about what that conversation was. So yeah, that was the only really conversation with the Navy. Air Force, there we started hearing things even from people who weren't there, just people who are in that community, in the ST community, and they'd say, like, we met somebody here in Cheyenne. He was a PJ. It was supposed to be a controller for like recruiting. The controller couldn't make it, so they had a PJ come in, and we stopped in at the booth, and Kenny was like, "Oh, hey, have you ever heard of Chappie?" Blah blah. And this was not long after we moved out here, so probably '09. And this PJ, I don't remember his name, he got pissed, and I was like, "Whoa, what's?" And he said, he should have gotten the Medal of Honor, and they freaking left him. And I mean, he went off like. So when you start hearing stuff like that from people within the community, you just, I mean, we already had an inkling even right from the start that there was more to the story, because things didn't make sense to us.
Uh-huh.
And but then when you start hearing people from the community saying, this is bullshit, it should have been Medal of Honor, they left him behind, they never checked him, all this other stuff, people start talking. And um, so that's how we started learning more. Like the Air Force officially didn't tell us, hey, this is what we found out, more of this, and or this is more information that we have. They didn't do it. It was just people within the community that would be frustrated or just want to get it off their chest. Like, yeah, something's not right here.
Well, one thing I forgot to say too is Dan Schilling has said multiple times, including on my podcast in episode 64, that combat controllers are the deadliest men to ever walk the battlefield. So I want to kind of just either let people know that or remind people that when we're thinking about John here. When did you find out about the CIA, the Predator drone footage? And is that the footage that we now see, or was there multiple different aircraft or surveillance devices in the sky that captured it?
So I don't know the year, but we had heard rumblings, or we had heard, it was more than rumor. We had heard about this drone video. Um, People that we knew had seen it, and told us, well, it's not like you're sitting here like watching a movie. It's gray and grainy, and it's not like you're seeing a person, you're seeing a little blob. But just to people who know what they're looking at, they knew what they were looking at. But for me, if I was going to look at it, I would just be like, what's what? So I had someone who had at least part of the video, showed it to me, and and is able to tell me this is this and this is that. But and I think it was, I don't know if it was deemed classified or what. But of course, that how that works. It came out. But then we found out later, and it was during the Medal of Honor time frame where they were trying to prove that it should have been the Medal of Honor instead of the Air Force Cross. We found out that there was an AC-130 video, a lot higher up than the drone that had been recording it too. So they had, audio, visual recording of the whole battle also. And so apparently, like with the CIA drone, it's circling. So there might be periods of time where it's not seeing the battle, where it's coming back around. Where the AC-130, you could see the whole thing. So during the Medal of Honor timeframe when they were trying to prove it, they were able to use the AC-130 video to fill in the gaps of the CIA drone video. And that's how they were able to attach electronic tags to each person so they could see everywhere they went. Because there was written testimony, and hey, Slavinsky went out first and John came out second. So then you're able to assign the tags. So then you can see where they went, where they didn't go. And without that secondary CIA or AC-130 video, the lies probably would have continued to this day, and John wouldn't have the Medal of Honor. Of course, neither would Slavinsky, but.
So was the AC-130 lower in elevation than the drone?
No.
Oh,
No,
really?
I don't think so, because I mean the
Okay.
AC-130s have to function from like 30,000 feet or 20,000 feet. I don't know if the drones go. I don't even know if the drones can go that high.
Okay.
I'm
All
not
right.
sure. I'm the wrong person to ask that. I could be completely off base on that one.
Okay. Well, I don't
But
know
I
either.
believe that the AC-130 was much higher than that's why, like, maybe it had a tighter radius, and that's why they were able to see like the whole thing unfolding. I'm not
Mhm.
sure, or at least be able to fit in, piece it together.
When you found out about the drone footage and the AC-130 footage, at this point in time, so are we looking at like 2018 time frame, do you think?
No,
2017?
it was before that, probably. I want to say, so Secretary of the Air Force, Deborah James, I want to say it was like 2014 or early 2015 when she read an article in the Air Force Times where the journalist asked the question, what does it take for an airman to receive the Medal of Honor? And she just kind of went, let's find out. So she tasked her people to come up with the names of people who may not have gotten a higher, may have deserved the Medal of Honor, but didn't get it. And I think there were maybe 10 names on the list, and John's kind of was at the top.
Mm-hmm. Well, at that point, then, let's say whenever you found out, then, if it was 2014, so you're still dealing with that's what, 12 years after John's death?
Mm-hmm.
What was your emotional state? I'm just thinking of, because y'all keep getting information. Maybe sometimes it's good, maybe sometimes it's bad, but I feel like, Lori, it's like you just keep getting kicked in the knees or something. I don't know, or in the gut, but what was it like at that point? Was it a relief? Was it anger? Was it what? Was it disbelief? Can you
No,
remember?
the whole 23, almost 24 years now is like a total roller coaster. As like I said in the beginning, we all believed what we were told, with the caveat of feeling like there was much more to it. And then slowly each little piece would come out. Like there was just little things that didn't make sense. And normally I feel like if it doesn't make sense, then there's something to it. Like even initially, or probably within the first year, we hear, or maybe in the first few months, we hear, oh, Slavinsky said he left John here, but when the Rangers came in, they found his body over here. Okay, well, how did he get over there? Like the enemy wasn't going to drag him somewhere, and plus he was fully clothed. He had all of his equipment. His gun was missing, I think. But if the enemy had had the time with him that they had with Roberts, John would have looked like Roberts. He would have been stripped of most of his stuff and probably had some bodily injuries but he didn't. So there were things that didn't make sense. Like, okay, how does his body get from here to over there? then they're trying to say, well, it must have been the concussive blasts, and when the US bombed, and it must have flopped his body over there. And it's like, there were just different things that the Navy would come up with, this really dumbass, thinking that we're all going to buy it. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Things just didn't make sense. And then with Slavinsky changing his story about how he supposedly checked John, and then when you see in the video, he never went near John, but he swore till Kingdom Come that oh yeah, I checked him. And as each bit of the information came out, and oh crap, that story doesn't hold true, I need to change my story. So his story about checking John changed about 3 or 4 times, and each one has been disproved by the video. But it's just been a slow process through over the years. But the whole AC-130 video thing is interesting. So Rob Harrison was in the AC-130, so he was an ear and eyewitness to the whole thing. He was also part of the team put together to prove John's Medal of Honor. So it's basically the Navy, I guess protocol is any of those, like if there's an occurrence, the AC-130 had recorded everything. The Navy knew that they recorded everything. And normally it's not something unusual for then the Navy to say, hey, we want that video. What is unusual is that there's someone standing there as soon as they come to a stop. I want that video. It's usually maybe a day or two later, like, hey, we need that video. The Samansky or whoever it was, they were standing there waiting to get that video as soon as they landed. And what they didn't know was that they had backed it up in the air. And they didn't do it they didn't do it like, hey, we know they're going to take it, so we're going to back it up. It was just something that they did. And then they took that video and ended up just in a drawer somewhere and forgotten. And so when and I could be, some of these details might be a little off. The people to talk to would be, Rob Harrison, Frank Daly, because they were both there. And actually, Frank is the one who remembered about that video. So all these from 2002 till about 14 or the beginning of 15, when they put together that team to prove the medal, the Navy thought they could continue lying because that video was gone. They had taken the video. So as far as they thought, we don't have to deal with that. But then Frank remembered, oh yeah, hey, wait a minute. I think we put a video in a drawer somewhere, and he was able to find it. And that's how they had that video to start piecing together the proof. And then the Navy was not happy to find out that, oh shit, it didn't disappear.
I'm going to link to an interview or two. Rob Harrison, that was a good one I heard recently, one you told me about. Frank Daly, I cannot remember now. If you've got one on him, please send it. I can't remember if I listened to him or not. It's a familiar name anyway.
I want to say he was on the After Action Report with Seth Atena. I think that's the one he was on.
Okay.
I don't know if he's been on more than one, but I believe that was the one that he was on with Seth.
All right. So maybe just for a second back, Neil Roberts is the SEAL who fell out. And that's where the book Roberts Ridge, I guess they kind of named that area up there, that part of Takur Ghar, Roberts Ridge. Is that right? After him?
Yeah, after him.
What happened to him?
First of all, I wouldn't rely too heavily on Malcolm McPherson, his book. It came out really fast. He came to my mom's house and kind of interviewed us and really took the information and did not present it like he's saying John was pudgy, and John was never pudgy.
Oh, I heard that. Like he was a 6-pack a day or something like that.
Yeah, and he did smoke for a period of time, but I don't think he was, multiple packs a day. But I don't know if that was just, creative writing. I don't know. But unfortunately, Malcolm has passed away a long time ago, but he was supposed to publish certain information about the SEALs, and somehow he didn't. So I don't know if I would put a whole big lot of stock in that book, but really, if the SEALs wanted to honor one of theirs from that point in time on Takur Ghar, they really should have been honoring Neil and not Slavinsky, because Neil, they were going. The whole thing was stupid. They didn't have to go. They were supposed to land at the base and egress up and be surprise everybody. But helicopter issues and time and whatever, they said, well, let's just get deposited on top of the mountain. This is a 10,000-foot mountain and there's a Chinook helicopter. You think the enemy, and they knew from rangers being on the ground weeks prior that there was enemy up there. And so you think, okay, nothing could go wrong here. They won't hear us coming. And when they had the back open already, and they RPG fire, and then they kind of had to bank away sharply, and Neil fell out. He wasn't tethered because I think it was an engineer, who was tethered, fell out. Neil went to help him back in, and then this is what I've been told, and that when the guy reached out for Neil to help him, he trying to pull himself in, but he pulled Neil out. And that's how Neil ended up out of the helicopter. And then he, did his best to defend himself I've heard different things on how long he survived, but I don't know that it was that long, maybe 20 minutes tops, maybe. But from what I understand, he used all of his ammo and then he was murdered. But yeah, so that's what happened to Neil.
And did they take his equipment, his clothing, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, because they had time, because the helicopter had to crash land, somewhere else, or controlled crash land, and then go back and get another helicopter and all. So there were hours that the enemy had with Neil. So I'm sure they took whatever would help them, his weapon, his Gore-Tex pants that the Navy tries to say, they call it red beard bullshit, whatever. They basically took whatever they could. I mean, why wouldn't you? You have, I don't know what equipment or what clothing you have on the top of a mountain for months and months, but if you have a chance to get an American's clothing that's probably warmer, why wouldn't you do it? So they took a lot of his stuff and did things to his body. They had that time with John that the same thing would have happened to him, and it didn't. John was fully clothed. He had no other than hand-to-hand combat and the wounds from shrapnel and bullets. He didn't have any of that.
What happened? What happened up there? What do you want to say? Because I don't know. And has anything new come out in the last month or two that you've discovered either through your research, or has someone come to you with new information?
No, I mean, it's Rob has been really wonderful in being able to unpack a lot of, what the Navy SEALs are trying to distance themselves from, which is the truth. It was a shit show. It was something that didn't have to happen to begin with. The only reason they went in was because Szymanski and Jeremy Williams sitting there and in the comfort of their jock or whatever, wherever the heck they were, saying, well, we have to be the ones to get bin Laden. So they were thinking that bin Laden was in that area. They didn't want to miss out on the fight. They figured that it wouldn't last. This whole Operation Anaconda thing wouldn't last a long time. So they needed to get in their window of, we need to be the heroes. And it was a mission that didn't have to happen. It was a mission that I believe 2 other SEAL team leaders turned down. So Slavinsky could have turned it down also. But he's weak, and he was talked into it. He did try to push it 24 hours, but in the end, he, gave in to Szymanski and Jeremy Williams, and they went on this really unplanned, I can't even say ill-planned, secondary mission to go get Neil. And then, it hit the fan as soon as they tried to land. I used to say, and I guess I still hold true to, I can't blame them for what happened on the mountain necessarily. I mean, they didn't have to be there in the first place, and Slavinsky was no leader. But I can blame them for the 23 years of lies and trying to discredit John and trying to make sure he didn't get the Medal of Honor, and all the other things that they've done to our family over and over again. So they like to use the FERT term, and I've come to hate the term fog of war. Okay, I know that it exists. I know that things happen even in an accident or something, it doesn't even have to be war. Things happen and you're like, "Ah, I'm not sure what happened. I don't really remember this how it went and the sequence of whatever, but they use it all the time. Like, well, we don't really want to discuss that, so it's fog of war. Oh, we got caught in a lie, it's fog of war. And so I'm sick of death of that phrase. So that's the thing. I can't blame them. They're being shot at. It was dark initially. Thigh deep snow. Their own people, their own SEALs some of them were injured. I think Slavinsky was the only one who left the mountain with no injuries. And yet he has pants that he wore that have bullet holes in them. Like, I don't know how that happens.
Right.
But
Was John on the same helicopter? The same, I guess, was it a Chinook
yep.
as Neil Roberts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. They were all
Yeah.
together. Yeah.
All right.
He had been a teammate of John's for that mission. Yeah.
So what else happened when they land? You started this a while ago. Or I don't know if they land or not, but they get low enough. Samansky jumps out.
Yeah, so Slavinsky, there are two skis there. So it's hard.
Yeah, that's right. Right. That's
Samansky
right. That's
is,
right.
yeah, he's the commander or whatever turd. Anyway,
Yeah. Well, hey, speaking of that, Samansky, is he the one that had the whole canoeing accusations and telling the
I
SEALs to hit
think
people
so.
on the
Yeah,
head with?
yeah, he was involved in a lot of things. He was involved in the Job Price murder. Yeah, there's a whole string of a timeline that in where he's involved either directly or indirectly. Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
him.
I read an article on that, on the canoeing thing, many, many years ago.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know there was one too where somebody gave all their people like these hatchets. I don't know if that was him or not. I think it was someone else. But yeah,
hmm
just inappropriate stuff. I'm not so concerned about any hatchets, like whatever. You do you. But the
But
canoeing thing is a war crime.
yeah. So now, but that came after Roberts Ridge, right?
Oh yeah, all of it
Okay.
came out. It just keeps getting worse and worse.
So Slab, aka Slabinski, is he
Mm-hmm.
the first one out? And then
Yep.
John, any
Yep.
post holes because in the snow we didn't realize it was so deep.
Yep.
Will you just tell us what happened? I mean, this is just mesmerizing to me, and I've heard it many times now.
You mean that? So John went over. So when you see the video, it looks like it's flat terrain, but it's not. It's like, he's going uphill at a steep angle towards the bunkers. So John just goes up, takes out the two out of the two bunkers. So when he got out and then Slab got up and then the other four kind of went two separate ways, in pairs of two.
So John's by
Slavinsk
himself. Is he kind of by
basically,
himself? Okay.
yeah. Oh, not according to Slavinsky, but if you look at the video, he is. So from what I understand, and people talking to people who obviously know because they did the training, is you attack the attacker, which is exactly what they did. They're trying to, at some point they were trying to say he was supposed to set up comms. Well, how do you expect him to set up comms when they're getting shot at? And he has to get to
hmm
higher ground. So just shut up. So he attacked the attacker like he was supposed to. And from what I've been told, you when there's more than one of you, even if it's just two of you, you're in a V, so that you're not one behind the other. So if they're shooting, you're not going to shoot your guy if you're in the back. And so John went up, then Slavinsky, instead of going to the side and coming up, as a two-person V, if you will, he goes in through John's steps because John's already made some headway through the snow there. So he takes the easy route basically. Never really connected up with John, I think, on the first one. And then John went immediately from the first bunker to the second. And I think that's where they kind of caught up. And that's where John was hit by something and went down. And
Where was he hit? What part of his body? Do you know what it was that
so
where he
I
was hit?
have John's autopsy report, but I have never read it. And unless I absolutely have to, I won't read it.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly if he was hit in the arm or the torso or the leg, or I don't know. I just know that he allegedly went down, and that's when the BS happens of how Slavinsky determined that John was dead. And then he congregated, left that area and went to this, there's a boulder, and the five of them congregated, and the other four, they were like, "Where's Chappie?" And Slavinsky said he's dead. So I can't blame those four, that they're working with the information they were given. Chappie's dead. Okay, let's move on. But Slavinsky knew he'd never checked John.
How many people, these were Chechens, or were they all
There were
Chechens up there?
Chechens and Uzbeki. I don't know if that's how you say
Okay.
it. Uzbeks.
So how many were shooting at John and his team? Do you know?
I've heard different, like maybe a couple dozen.
Oh my gosh.
You
Wow.
know, probably one to 2 dozen. I'm not positive how many were there when John was fighting by himself for an hour and 20 minutes. Yeah, he was dealing with that many people. Well, minus the ones he had already killed.
I had no idea it was that many.
And he did hand to hand, I think twice, and won those 2 battles. And he suffered. They tried to RPG him. And then the worst part, I feel, was now Slavinsky has already admitted, they've all admitted that they heard the gunfire after they left the mountain. After they said, "Hey, where's Chappie? He's dead. Well, and this guy's injured and that guy's injured and we need to leave." They heard the gunfire still going on up there because John came to after maybe 15, 20 minutes. And then like you heard Rob say that the strobe, they started getting the strobe pinging. So he came to and he's fighting them. They heard it. They admitted that they heard it. Slavinsky actually told Malcolm McPherson he heard the video of the firing. Then they started trying to say, well, we thought it was red on red, where they were fighting each other. But by that time, it was, I want to say, like almost 6 o'clock in the morning or a little bit after. It was day. It was That's why we called it Alone at Dawn. It's the sun is coming up. The sun is up. These guys have been fighting alongside of each other on that mountain for weeks or months or maybe even years. So they knew they wouldn't be fighting each other basically.
Mhm.
Then they were trying to say, well, it was celebratory gunfire. Well, they're not going to fire celebratory rounds for an hour and 20 minutes. So it's not going to happen. It would be like a minute. Yay, we chased them away.
Hey, that sounds like the person on the news the other day saying that the shots at Charlie Kirk's event could have been somebody celebrating. Did you hear that? Anyway,
Yeah, I
just
heard
something absurd.
it was
So,
just stupid. Like we're not that dumb.
mhm.
Sorry, people, we're not that dumb. But so I say those things because they knew. Number one, they're trained to know the different reports from different weapons. They knew that there was an American weapon being fired.
Yeah.
And
Do you know what
and
gun
yet
John had? What he was using?
I have a replica of it, but I don't know firearms
Okay.
that
And I wonder
well,
what
but
they were using. Did they have Dragonovs, or do you know what the
I
enemy
know there was
had?
a Dishka. I know there was,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah. I know
but
that
as
too.
far as handheld, I'm not sure
Okay.
what they had, but yeah. So my point in this is Slavinsky heard it. He knew that he'd never checked John. He heard an American weapon. And what did he do? He had called in for a QRF, but he also called in for airstrikes from the AC-130s. So John was not only getting hit with shrapnel, being shot at, hand-to-hand combat because people are trying to attack him face to face. Now he has American bombs falling all around him. So he's suffering those concussive blasts. I mean, it's by a miracle probably that he didn't get one dropped right on him.
So how did that? Now look, I'm not trying to second guess. I'm just asking an honest question. John, that's what John was trained to do, is the close air support.
Mm-hmm.
Slabinski, how could he do that? Was he a backup? How could he call in airstrikes?
I don't know that it was, I think he was just calling for air support or I think they're all trained on some level to be able to call in an air strike because there are times when a group of Navy SEALs or a group of whatever, they don't have a combat controller. So someone in that team has to be able to call in an airstrike.
Okay.
So Slavinsky was the one, who called it in and said, hey, their enemy up there, we've left the mountain, so go ahead and bomb it.
Did
But
they
he
know
knew.
for certain that Neil Roberts was dead at this time?
They actually came closer to Neil's body than John's, but they never came across either one of them before they left the mountain. So they must have assumed probably at that point, because hours and hours and hours had passed since Roberts had fallen. So they probably just, had to make that assumption that Roberts was gone, but they never set eyes on him.
All right, so John's got fire coming from the sky now.
Mm-hmm. And then Slavinsky called in the QRF, which kind of doesn't make sense to me, because they had gone off the side of the mountain, which was pretty sheer, pretty steep. There was no way they were getting back up to the mountain. They would have to just keep going down. And yet he called in a QRF to go to the top of the mountain. So that part I don't get that part. I'm not military. I have no idea. But so he called in the QRF, and that's when the QRF was coming in, and John had to have heard it, because like I said before, you're not going to miss a Chinook helicopter coming up a mountain. So he had to have heard it. By this time, he's had multiple gunshot wounds, shrapnel wounds, knife wounds from the hand-to-hand. And he knew that his position where he was the perfect position for the enemy to set up a RPG launching. So he was trying to protect that spot so that they couldn't set that up, while laying down suppressive fire from the Dishka and whatever else was around, so that these guys on the helicopter, the third helicopter in the same spot, would have a fighting chance. Unfortunately, some of them died immediately off the ramp, but he did what he could. He gave them time to do whatever they had to do, set up how they were supposed to, do their military thing. I don't know how they did it, but in order to do that, in order to go after the dish, I think was what the one that got him was, he had to leave cover to do the suppressive fire, and that's when he was ultimately killed. When he laid prone, he had used up pretty much all of his ammo. There was one magazine left, I think, but it had been hit, so it was kind of inoperable. But he pretty much used up everything, and it was only when he left the security of the bunker and laid prone, and that's when he got the fatal shot.
How many dead enemy were in that bunker that he left? Do you know?
I don't, because I don't know. I know the first one was just two. There were two in that one that he killed, and I don't know how many.
Okay.
I mean, if he killed two hand to hand, so they were inside or just outside the bunker, and I don't know how many were in the bunker. And when I say bunker, like when I first heard bunker, my thought goes to like the bunkers of World War II on the sides of a cliff, like these big reinforced bunkers. They were really just ditches, dug in ditches with maybe some trees around it or something. So, bunker really isn't the right term, but that's what they call it.
I've been trying to picture that. I was trying to picture some kind of small cave or something, but all right. And Lori, when Dan Schilling was talking about this with me, I asked him at that time, so this was 2019, I think. I said, did John use a blade in any of this hand to hand? He said, no. Have you found out anything different now, or did he use a handgun, or was it all just his rifle that he had?
No, it was his ability in hand to hand. He was trained in close quarters combat, and he did what he was supposed to do. And I believe he was. I don't know if he had a handgun or not. I mean, he was supposed to have. He may have had one, but the hand to hand stuff was, I think, literally hand to hand.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, the
That's
enemy might have
incredible.
had a knife, but I don't know what he had.
Well, at least we know that he wasn't stabbed. I don't think, was he? Or
I
do
I
you
think
know?
I'm not sure. I think he did have but I don't know if you can tell if it's a slice or a shrapnel, I'm not sure. Like I
Okay.
said, I haven't read his autopsy. I don't plan to. I have it if there comes a need for it. But I also have people around me who can read and interpret it for me, so I don't have to.
Yeah, I get it. I
Yeah.
definitely get it. When John was found, or when well, so when was his body? When did they get him and get him off the mountain?
I want to say it was that day or the next day because the ensuing the Rangers kind of took the mountain after that. And I think that was quite a 14-hour battle or something to take the mountain. And it was at that point in time that they were all shocked to see that John was there. They did not know because of the communication for the SEALs had cut off they had like a Navy to Navy communication so that no one else around could hear what they were doing or saying. So there were a lot of people, even there was another controller on another mountain, Jay Hill, who actually heard John when he was up there by himself. Any station, this is Mako 30 Charlie. And then Jay would respond to him and John never responded back. But he heard it multiple times. So nobody knew he was there. Because even when the battle first started, Jay said he could see it happening on another mountain. And he's like, who the heck is that? Like, what is going on over there? Nobody knew that Americans were up there. So when the Rangers, when they took the mountain, they were expecting to find one American body, Neil Roberts, and they found two. So they were like, what is going on here? And then I didn't realize it, but I guess the enemy sometimes booby trapped the bodies because they knew the Americans would come back. And I don't know why this really bothers me, but apparently when they first found John, they had to like lasso his foot or something and then pull him like to see if he was booby trapped or not. And I don't know why that really bothers me that he was lassoed and dragged. I understand it on an intellectual level why they had to do that, but it really hurts my heart that he was dragged,
Yeah. Yeah.
um so they didn't expect to have two Americans up there. That's how things went, like to the point where they were not expecting John to be there because no one knew he would be there. Like, how would now nobody know he was not there or that he would
Right.
be there?
Because Slab called in at some point, he said possible 1 KIA. Is that what he said on the radio when he was calling in some help?
He said possible KIA. Which to me that is the one time that he actually told the truth. He did not know if John was dead or not. That is the one time he told the truth, was possible KIA.
Okay,
If
so
he
he was
knew for
talking about
sure,
John then, and
yeah,
not Roberts.
he had never seen Robert, so he
Okay.
had been in contact with John. I mean, they may try to, well, that's not what we meant, but he was he said possible KIA with the team that he was leaving. So that is, like, to me, confirmation that he didn't know that John was dead. He didn't check him when you say the word possible.
Yeah. Yeah. So where was Slab and his team when the Rangers came in and got John and Roberts off the mountain?
That's another thing. They were already sliding down the mountain. They had already gone over the side.
You
And I
mean
mean, you can.
walking on foot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they weren't up there, and there's no way they could have gotten back up there. And yet, in these years later, have them tell the story, they fought for another 14 hours. They didn't go back up there and fight for the 14 hours. They were descending the mountain.
One thing I wanted to back up on, is this right, Lori? John was shot 16 times. Is that, and I realize the autopsy would say for sure, but is that
I don't think it was that
knowledge?
many times. I think he may have had 16 wounds.
Okay.
That would include, bruising and shrapnel and maybe knife wounds. I don't imagine. I imagine he did have knife wounds because I just can't see some guy trying to attack somebody without a weapon. I don't know. It could be that it was truly just hand to hand, but
Yeah.
so it could have been a total of 16 wounds. I don't know for sure. I've heard different, like 9 or 7. I've heard different amounts of how many times he was shot. I try not to focus too much on that part of it because, ultimately, the it only took one to finish him off. So, and he may very well have, I mean, he had so many wounds, he may very well have bled out before, even after, even if they got to him, he may not have made it. But he never got the chance to find out,
Yeah.
if he could make it
Yeah.
or not.
Lori, have you thought about possibly, no, I will say this. I thought about this in my situation, and I asked Dan this question too, but you as his sister, because Dan said, look, I'm not going to speculate what he was thinking, but have you thought about what was going through John's mind those last moments of his life? Have you thought about it? And do you think you have any idea maybe how he was feeling or what he was thinking?
I feel like if he had any time, which I don't think he did, I mean, this was, I need to live, I need to fight to live, or I need to protect this team, this QRF that's coming in. I sincerely, in his last several minutes or whatever it is, even in that whole hour and 20 minutes, because it just never stopped coming at him. He may have thought about his two little girls, maybe. But I feel like he was so able to focus on the task at hand. I don't know if he had any time to think about, what he might be leaving behind, or who he might be leaving behind, or where the hell did my team go? Why am I here by myself? I pray that he never had even a split second of abandonment, a thought of, holy shit, they left me here. I pray that he never thought that, or that he had that sinking feeling of, wow, they left me and I'm alone. I just feel like it was blinders. This is my job now, and that's all I'm thinking about. How to survive, how to protect that QRF, how to, whatever.
Hmm.
I feel like that's the warrior brain would have just taken over, and there was no room for, my wife, my kids, my mom, my dad, my sisters and brother. I don't know if there was time for that.
Okay. And you're about 18 months older than him. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
So, you're the older sister. And I just think being a female, you're a little more, probably more nurturing, And so I just wondered, because that thought of abandonment, putting myself in your shoes, and I thought the same thing about Mark, is I sure hope he didn't feel like, where is everybody?
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's tough when you're the ones left behind and you want to make sense of it. And I I sometimes feel like I can, correctly or not, put myself in there. I tried to, at one point in time, I tried to put myself in his situation, in his head, in his, like, what would he been thinking? And it's just torture. You're just torturing yourself with the what ifs, what could have been, maybe, if, you don't know. So I've since stopped doing that. I mean, I think we pretty much know anyway by the videos, but I don't know if it's that healthy to try to imagine every little second, every minute that he endured, because it's too painful, honestly.
It is. Yeah. Man, the guy was just a stud, and I'll have a link to the footage. Now, I was going to use the one that Dan Schilling narrates. Do you think that's the best one now, or is there something else out there to
No,
that
I
better
think
illustrates?
that's the very best one. He did a great job of narrating it, and that I think that was the best one. The Air Force had put one out that was similar, and it was someone else narrating it, and that's nowhere near as informative, I think, especially telling the truth, than the one that Dan narrates.
One thing that you've said before, Lori, and maybe we've talked about this on the phone too, is I think this can be tricky sometimes, but at least over time, I mean, loved ones deserve to know the truth. We just want to know the truth. Now,
Yep.
maybe there you can't handle it at first. Maybe it's a little bit at a time. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason why it's withheld for a period of time, but you deserve to know the truth, and your family deserves. And you know what? Your dad never knew the truth
No,
because he
he
died two
knows
years
now.
later.
So there's a difference for me. There's a difference between having something information withheld for maybe security reasons or, reasons you're in war or whatever. There may be a reason that a family shouldn't know certain things right away. But that's totally different from being lied to. Withholding is, maybe people would think it's some form of lying, but it's really not. Sometimes you might have to withhold information for a while, but it's the lies that, like Pat Tillman, he was lied about. That whole thing was a lie until it came out. So just tell the truth out of the gate. We wouldn't even be sitting here if the Navy SEALs had told the truth right out of the gate. If they had owned their hubris, if they had owned their humanness. They're not perfect. They make mistakes. They should have just owned it and said, "We effed up. This is what happened. We're so sorry." And John should have had the Medal of Honor right out of the gate in 2003 and be done. But they can't bring themselves to do that. It's all about the brand, and no, we would never leave someone behind, and we don't make mistakes, and you don't make mistakes. But there are many people in the special operations, special tactics community who don't want to work with them because they know that they get people hurt and killed. So clean up your shit and be honest. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. Well, I do have a
Well,
lot to say, but
John was awarded the Air Force Cross, so our nation's second highest
Air
medal
Force.
for
Mhm.
the Air Force one in combat. So when was that awarded?
That was January of 2003. So
Okay,
here's
so
the
10
thing.
months later.
Yeah. So here's the thing though. So they put in the Air Force also put Jason Cunningham in for the Air Force Cross. Jason's was awarded, I want to say in September of '02. And so we were
And
like,
Jason was a PJ?
he was a PJ that came in
Yeah.
on the third one, the QRF.
Okay.
And so he was awarded his in September. So we were and this is another thing, like ding ding ding, something doesn't make sense. Like, what about John? Like, why? Well, how is Jason's already, and we haven't heard anything. And then John's finally gets awarded in January of '03. And, come to find out it was because the generals who were making the decisions were kind of like fighting about or questioning that. I think out of a panel of five, I'm not positive, three of them wrote in the margins Medal of Honor. So even back then there were people saying, this should probably be the Medal of Honor. And so that's why it took longer, was there was like a debate. And I don't know for sure, but given what they did in 15 to 18, I imagine that the SEALs were fighting it. Like, no, 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 he can't get the Medal of Honor. I don't know for sure, but you know, history says that they were willing to do it because they did in 18.
Where was that ceremony held? And who was like the high ranking?
The Air Force Cross,
Yeah.
that was held at Pope in one of their hangars.
Okay.
General Jumper was there. I think he was the one there.
Jumper. Okay, so that's a name that I think you mentioned in your book, right?
Mm,
Kenny talks to him.
yep.
Will
At
you
the ship dedication. So John has a ship.
a
So
Navy ship? Is that
it's
right?
actually a privately owned ship leased by the Navy, moored at an Army facility and named after an airman. So I thought that was kind of cool. But anyway, so at the ship dedication, yeah, Jumper was there. And at this point in time, Kenny and I had already been trying to get John's Air Force Cross just looked at, like, because we thought, I had done some research on Medals of Honor, and I found, many that were involving guys who did way more than John did, and I found many that involved guys who did way less than John did. So I'm like, this kind of fits right in there with the Medal of Honor. So we had been trying. So Kenny approached General Jumper after the ceremony for the ship dedication, and Jumper knew that Kenny was the first sergeant, had been the first sergeant. He knew that he was married to John's sister, and he's still, when Kenny said, "Hey, what would you think about, just looking at the Air Force Cross to see if it should be upgraded?" And Jumper immediately says to Kenny, still knowing the relationship, well, the Chapmans have been really easy to work with, so let's not rock the boat. Okay, that's another ding 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 moment, like, hello, there's more to it. There's just so many things that didn't make sense, or things like
Yeah.
that happened where you're like, okay, we got it. There's more to this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought that was pretty crappy things for him to say. And in hindsight, I I mean, I guess I can't be embarrassed because I didn't know. I was working on what I felt and what I knew at the time. But I feel like such a schmuck. Like, how did we not see that we were being played, Because we trusted what we were told.
Yeah,
Families need to have the truth.
they do. They do. And you're in a situation, Lori, I mean, that hardly anybody ever experiences. So few people. So you just don't know. Oh man. I can only just try to imagine that's it. But that's one reason why this John's whole story and hearing you speak has really just kind of pierced me, because I can kind of easily put myself in your shoes. I mean,
Mhm.
just because I'd be mad too, and I would be wanting answers if I were you.
Right. But then, after the whole Medal of Honor stuff where they eventually, I mean, if you heard Rob talk, then, he was in the room when the Air Force went to the Navy, just out of courtesy. They didn't have to go, and just showed them what they had. And then Jeremy Williams leans back in his chair and looks at Slab and says, well, we should just put you up for the Medal of Honor then, because nothing else worked for them to kill Johns. So that was their last ditch effort, was to get Slavinsky one, where his citation gives him credit for John's actions. And like, he didn't earn the Medal of Honor, because if he had earned the Medal of Honor, the Navy would have demanded it right out of the gate in 2002. So they know he didn't earn it. And yet here we are now with so after all that, and I knew he didn't deserve it, and he had the audacity to show up to John's Medal of Honor ceremony, but he was invited. So but after that, a couple years after that, I'm like, I've just found my peace with it, I guess, if you want to say. And then the whole museum thing happened and yanked me right back into it, ripped off the band-aid again.
Yeah.
And that's why I've said in the past, and I mean it, I'm not going anywhere. I may get silent for a while, but I can't let more families suffer worse fates than we did. And there already are families who suffered worse than we have. So, at least my brother wasn't murdered by our own people, and there are lots of families out there, unfortunately, who have lost loved ones directly at the hands of, or because of those certain SEALs. And I want to say, just from my point of view, I'm sure that there are some good Navy SEALs out there, but unfortunately, I also feel like the number of the bad SEALs, I mean, evil, corrupt SEALs, is growing, and it
Okay. So you think
makes
it's
me
getting
sad.
worse? You're
Oh
saying it's
yeah,
getting worse?
oh yeah, because they keep getting away with stuff. So that's just a snowball effect, and it emboldens them, and more, and they have ways of, even if you're a good SEAL, and if they want your skill set or whatever, they're going to find a way to own you, and that's how they operate.
When did Slab get his Medal of Honor? It was before
He,
John, right?
oh yeah, Navy wanted to make sure his was received, for optics, that his was received before John received his. So he got his in May of 2018, and John was August of 18.
Okay. Why was he invited to John's ceremony?
probably because the Air Force told Valerie that that should happen. Well, I shouldn't say that. She seems to still, and I'm not going to speak for her, but at this point in time, I believe she still believes that I've heard her say that, and I think it was in an interview in 2018, but here again, she's been coached, for 2 years in the run up to this on what to say and what not to say. But she said she had come to accept what happened on the mountain. And I'm like, great. I can say that too, for the most part. What about the 23 years of lies and trying to kill John's medal and trying to talk bad about him, and what about that? She doesn't address that part of it. So I think she wanted him there, the Slavinsky. Plus, there was Medal of Honor ceremonies, Medal of Honor recipients. I think especially recent ones are normally invited to Medal of Honor ceremonies. So, but I did hear that Szymanski, the commander, whatever turd, wanted to be invited and he wasn't not invited. So I was thankful for that part. So that's what I had heard, that he wanted to be there, but they were like, yeah, no, we don't want you there. So that was one good thing. But yeah, Slavinsky was there. And unfortunately, the way it was situated, the way we were sitting in the front and then they were over on the side, the other Medal of Honor recipients, and then there's the podium. So when I'm looking at the podium and when Trump was speaking, right past the podium, I can see Slavinsky sitting there. And, it's like, I don't know. I tried to just ignore his ugly little face, but, it's hard when you're looking in that direction and then he's right there. And then they had a reception afterwards, and I was walking and I turned and there he was, like standing right there. And I just like, I didn't want to make a scene because that it was the wrong place and time. This was for John. So I just turned around and walked away. That's not what I wanted to do, but it would have been inappropriate for me to confront him at the reception of John's Medal of Honor. So I took the high road and walked away.
That was 2018, did you say?
Yeah.
Will you share what that whole week or the few days is like? And then is that the only time that you saw Slavinsky? I mean, did that kind of tarnish the whole thing, or was that just a small
Oh, I wasn't
blip?
gonna let that turd tarnish anything. No, the whole week was beautiful. We started off just having a meet and greet with Chief Master Sergeant Wright and his wife, and just kind of meeting people, and General Goldfein. I don't know if we saw him that first day. The things that really touched me, okay, I really enjoyed watching or being involved, or actually just watching the Medal of Honor ceremony, because to me it was public verification that John did do more than people thought he did. But that wasn't the best part of the week. It was, I want to say the second day, I don't remember. We were getting a tour of the Pentagon. And I don't know if you've ever been in the Pentagon, but the halls go on forever. It's huge, it's bigger than you can think in your head. So we got there and we started off in General Goldfein's office, and then we kind of walked around and they were showing us different things. And then we were going back towards General Goldfein's office again. And what we didn't know was they planned on, when our return trip back to his office, everybody came out of their offices. There were people who took the time from someplace else who didn't even work in the Pentagon to be there. And when we were walking back to his office, everyone was clapping and saying thank you and crying. And when I realized what was happening, I just started crying. I'm like bawling, saying thank you to people on the way back. And to me, that was so special and so emotional to have that happen. All these people who just wanted to support us. And like I said, some came from, they didn't even work there, and they, rushed to get there. So there was that. So the first official ceremony was the Medal of Honor ceremony in on Wednesday of that week. Then the following day was the Pentagon. So John was up on the Hall of Heroes. Well, yeah. There was this presentation. There was speaking. A Secretary of the Air Force gave, and that's at that point in time it was Heather Wilson. She gave an amazing speech that she wrote herself, and that was a good day. And then the following day, the Friday, was Air Force Memorial. John's name was unveiled on the Air Force Memorial, and they were expecting like 700 people, and I think they estimated around 1,200 people were there. And there was another moment that really caught my attention. Well, not just me, but while we were in the buses going to the memorial, I mean, you could see people rushing, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna miss it. And there was an officer, an Air Force officer, who heard us coming and stopped and saluted us as we went by. No, an officer doesn't salute an enlisted. So that struck a chord with me. Like he was really showing John respect and our family respect by saluting. I don't know what you call it. You don't call it an inferior, but a subordinate, I guess you would call him. That really touched my heart. And I don't know. Obviously, I have no idea who he was, but like I think I said in the book, I see you, like I saw you, and I really appreciated that. We all did. So it's just the little things like that were just really extra special. We went to Air House with where Goldfein and his wife lived for dinner, and we showed up there early, or they weren't quite ready for us, so they sent us to their stables, and it was just nice to see like the horses. They were all eating, so a lot of them wouldn't come out to be pet, but my husband got one of them, Sarge, I think his name was, to come out, so he was petting him, and got to see the caissons when there were funerals and stuff. And it was just a special time to just be together and laugh about them. We all stayed in the same hotel with the combat controllers and all of John's buddies, the people who came in from Connecticut and wherever. So it was kind of like a reunion where we all just sat around and stayed up all night and talked about John and laughed and cried. And that's what really meant the most to me, I think. It was just getting to talk with everyone again and sharing our pride in John and our grief. It's still, he's still gone, and I don't know. Yeah.
How did Trump make y'all feel?
Well, I don't even know if I should tell this story or not. So we befriended, or just a quick story. John was 12, I think, when this all happened. And Kenny and I were downstairs. John says, I want to go up. He got his own room. I don't know how he got his own room, but he had his own room in a hotel. And he says, I want to go upstairs to my room. And okay. So we were downstairs. He went up the escalator, and then there are the elevators. And he was standing at the elevator, and a friend of ours, Joe O'Keefe, another controller who, worked with John.
Yeah.
Joe was like, hey. He goes over, he has a glass of whiskey or something in his hand. He goes over to the elevators and he's talking to John, like, hey, John. Well, out of nowhere comes this Pentagon cop, this big guy. His name is Will Smith. And he was like, who are you? It basically protecting John from this stranger. And he looks at John, he says, you know him? He's like, yeah, he's my friend Joe. Okay. All right, you're good. So later on, Joe told us the story of like, holy crap, this guy was about to beat the crap out of me because he thought I was some stranger hitting on a little kid. And so we just got really tight with Will Smith, Officer Smith. I don't know if he was a captain or what he was, but so he had told us that afterwards he came up to us and said, so what was it like meeting the president? We were like, what? And he's like, I've been involved in multiple Medal of Honor ceremonies, and the family gets to go into a room before the ceremony and meet with the president. And we were told, oh no, it's too much. You can't, like I couldn't go in, Kevin didn't go in. It was just my mom Valerie and the two girls. And so we were like, and we had been told that we were going to be able to go in and meet him. And so here we are not meeting him. And then we talked and we just thought, okay, well, we just accepted what we were told. Well, yeah, they can't have that many people in there. And then Will says, that's BS. He's like, I've been involved in multiple Medal of Honor ceremonies and I've seen 15 to 20 people in there. So there was a purposeful decision made that Kevin and I and Kenny and Connie and, their kids and my son couldn't go in. I have a feeling why, I know why, but I won't put it out there and everyone else can make their own conclusions. But yeah, that was kind of hurtful. And that was on purpose. But what can you do now? So I don't know what Trump is like because we never got to meet him. He was nice to my mom.
Yeah.
He was like, he looked at her and he said, and he looked at a picture of John and he says, you look just like he looks just like you. And so that made her happy. So that was nice.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't think that's a story I've ever shared, but you asked me how I liked him and I'm like, I don't know. I can't tell you.
Right. The most recent, I think, Lori, is the Medal of Honor Museum. Now, I first heard about this several years ago, and then I believe Daryl was maybe the director of operations. I can't remember, but Daryl Utt came here and came on my show in person. He came to Huntsville. I had a great interview with him. I don't know if you dealt with Daryl any, but someone lied to y'all again, and it's John. And oh my gosh, I mean, this story just blows me away, and how John was going to be recognized in there, and y'all were told this and you were planning on being there and having friends come in when it opened, and it was completely different than what you were told. Would you just tell us however much you want to tell about what happened?
Yeah, so it was Daryl. I don't even, maybe it was through you. I don't know how we first got connected. I didn't even know about the Medal of Honor Museum being built in Arlington, Texas. And somehow we got connected via email. And he would send out, I think it was every 2 weeks, he would send out an update on the construction. I was part of that email group, and I'm the kind of person, like, if somebody's going to put forth an effort, I want them to know that at least somebody's appreciating it, somebody's looking at it. And I didn't email him every time, but every once in a while I would say, oh my gosh, it's looking so good. Thanks for sharing. I can't wait to see what it looks like. And at one point in time, he's like, well, you could come see it now if you want. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, we do tours of all the time of while it's under construction. So I'm like, all right, I'm there. So I contacted someone from John's old unit so that he could be involved also. It was the commander was also supposed to be there, but he got called away. So that if there was any artifacts that the unit could supply to either donate or lend the museum. And then I wanted to go for the same, just to see what it was, where maybe John's stuff would be, and to offer whatever the family could donate or lend. So we went there in February of 24. I met Mike there. And so we took the tour and they showed us where John's exhibit would most likely be. And I mean, the museum is beautiful. It's one of a kind. It is beautiful, but I have a very bad taste in my mouth over it. So it's hard for me to encourage people to go. But then we went into a conference room where they wanted to, like, oh, this is what we might have for we had a photo and what it would say. They didn't even have him listed as a combat controller. They just said he was Air Force or an airman. I'm like, Air Force Combat Control with capital C's. And they were like, oh yeah. Yeah. And so we made some suggestions for that. And we left so excited. Mike had his tasks to go back and see what artifacts they could find. And I was going to go. They said they would go visit my mom in Colorado Springs because she couldn't travel, to talk to her and get anything she had. And at that point in time, Tammy and Kevin could go too. And we were all excited. And that's when I waited for a little while to put it out there to friends and family. And then finally the curator, Greg Waters, said, yeah, it's okay to share with people. So I blasted out on Facebook, like, hey, this is going to happen. And I'm so excited. And if you else can make it, it's going to be in March of 25 and blah, blah. I mean, I had this big thing. I was so excited. And I knew that people were planning, people who maybe shouldn't be affording it, were planning on going and to be there for the unveiling of John's exhibit. So that was February of 24. So in November of 24, someone gave me information that he had been told from someone within the museum that we had been misled when we were there in February, that they weren't going to celebrate John, that they were actually going to diminish John, and that they were going to promote Slavinsky. And I was like, no, they would
You
never
can't get
do
away
that.
from this guy.
I freaking can't. And I was thinking, there's no way. And at the time too, I did not know that this is a privately funded museum. I don't know how they can be called National Museum when it's privately funded, but so at the time I didn't know that. So I'm thinking, there's no way that they could do that. The story's out there. How do you rewrite that? There's proof, there's video proof. How do you rewrite that? So I was thinking, I don't know. So I tried to verify it on my own and couldn't. So I sat on that information. Well, so no, that was the beginning of November. And towards the end of December, I want to say it was towards the end of December, my mom emailed the museum, the main email, because she didn't know the people that I knew within it. And by this time Daryl was gone. I didn't deal with him at all. It was other people.
Yeah, and I want to
So
say too, I don't want to mess it up, but I wasn't implying Daryl did any of this. Daryl,
no,
I really respect the heck out of him, and so
no, I don't know when he left, but he was gone. I'm not even sure if he must have been there when we visited, but maybe not long after that. I don't know when he left, but yeah, I'm definitely not saying that. But so she emailed them, and at the time she was having trouble with her eyes, so the whole email was in caps. So it's like she was screaming at him. I thought it was funny. But she was like, my daughter was there in February, and you said you said you were going to contact me, and no one has contacted me since then. And there was just so much, the Greg Waters was saying, oh, well, we tried to contact the unit, but they're hard to get hold of, and they won't call me back, which is BS, because Mike tried to call him multiple times and he didn't return Mike's calls. So that's BS number one. Then they came out and said, when this all hit the fan, they were saying, oh, the family, it's very sensitive, and the family has been. No, we were right out of the gate saying, whatever you need, we will try it. I even have a replica of John's weapon. Like, if they didn't have John's weapon, I might consider lending mine. But so she sent this email like, you didn't contact me, blah, blah, blah. And so immediately Greg Waters emailed her back and was like, oh, just giving her this cock and bull story of, being so busy, or, I don't know what he said. I have the emails, but thankfully I kept the emails, the whole thing. Like, they knew that we were expecting a full-on exhibit for John, and they let us believe that. They fed into it. And I have the emails to prove it, which is how things happened later on, like how the change.org could have a petition, because I had the proof. But as the receipts, as they say now, I guess. So and she either copied me on it or shared it to me. And once I found out that Mom was upset, I'm like, okay, the gloves are coming off. And that's when I emailed them in early January of 25 and said, what is going on here? I've just heard you guys are diminishing John and elevating Slavinsky. What is the deal? And I told him the whole story of, Slavinsky and his lies and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I pray that this is not true. And he was on the board of the museum, by the way.
And when did you find that out?
That he was on the board?
Yeah.
Oh, months before. I think even when we were there, I saw his little, what do they call it? A hard hat, whatever, with his name on the back.
Okay.
And, so I knew back then. And
didn't you see him? Didn't you kind of see?
There.
Okay.
No, I saw him at the opening, but no, I asked them in that conference room. I'm like, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room. Like, are they going to be side by side? And they said, nope, they won't be anywhere near each other. And I was like, okay, good. So I just said, I pray this isn't true because there's just no way. And they kind of gave me this very vanilla, whatever. And then I was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to send one email with one question each time. So they have to answer that one question. And I just asked, is John going to have an exhibit? No, he's not. Like, not a full exhibit. Is Slavinsky going to have an exhibit? Yes, he will. And I just went, wow, just wow. I can't freaking believe this. And so that was early January. And then I'm like, now what do I do? I had blasted out on Facebook about, I'm so excited
Mhm.
about this. And I finally said, I have to say something. I have to, because there were people who were planning on going. I wasn't going to have them waste money to go see nothing or go see whatever they had planned. So I blasted it out on Facebook and I added in my own colorful commentary about Slavinsky and the museum and whatever. And I just said, this is what's going on, people. They're trying to diminish John again. And there were people going, make it public, make it public. And it went viral. It was like it blew up. I had no idea that any of this would happen. I was just letting people know, don't bother going. And I don't think they expected, I think they were expecting that no one would know what it was going to look like until the unveiling in March of 2025. It was gross. We started seeing pictures from people, someone inside the museum who didn't agree with it all. I mean, there was somebody inside the museum saying, don't do this, it's going to blow up in your face. Like, do not mess with Chapman. And sure enough, it blew up in their faces. And I think they didn't know how to handle it at first. They were like, oh shit, ooh, this wasn't supposed to come out. Like, we weren't supposed to have to deal with this before the opening. And then I decided I was going to the opening. I wanted to see for myself. And then Rob Harrison went and Matt Kubler went to support me. And it was grosser than I could imagine in my head. I mean, you go up in the elevator, get off the elevator, and there's this right out of the elevator, this enormous, like, what are you trying to compensate for exhibit for Slavinsky that's like a flat table, but it's huge. It's white. And then he has all these little stories along and storylines.
I'd
And then
love to
at the
see that picture.
oh, I'll send you all of
Mm.
them. They're just, I mean,
Okay.
if you look at me, I don't know if on Facebook, I have one that's my post is like it's all about the museum and everything, and it shows them
Okay.
all.
Okay.
But
I'll check there.
yeah, it's and I think I made it public. So it's huge. And then at the other end of it is this glass case that has his white uniform, and then the one that he has the whole bullet holes in, but he never got injured in there. So, and then he has all these things, these quotes and these stories, and he actually has a picture of Neil Roberts. He doesn't name anybody. He does name John by first name. That's it. No, no, that he listed all the people who I think who died by first name only. But then they have a photo of Neil Roberts and they name him Neil Roberts and they have a little thing on him. And I'm like, John died on that mountain too. Why isn't John's picture and John's name right next to Neil Roberts there? No, 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 you can't have that. And so if you turn from this big self-grandizing whatever exhibit, and there's a wall that curves around from when you first get off the elevator to the right, there's a photo of John, and then there's the video. So the video is about just over 8 minutes. So it's reduced down to 2 minutes and it's muted. And that's all you get for John. And they're not even together. There's the video and then someone else's artifacts and then John's photo. And that's it.
Is the
And John,
video, is it the drone footage
yes,
okay.
yep. It's muted and it's cut down to like 2 minutes. And John is not mentioned anywhere in Slavinsky's, and Slavinsky's not mentioned anywhere in John's because they're trying to keep them separate. But, sorry, history shows that they can't be separated. It's John saved his life, and now once again, he's trying to shit all over the guy who saved his life.
Are there two versions of John's citation?
there are two, what do they call them? Material finding 1 and material finding 2. So the material finding 2 is, I'm not sure which one is which now. It's been so long. One of them is supposed to be classified, and it must be it must be 2. It's the part where the SEALs leave him behind. Like if you look at the citation, there's not mentioned that the SEALs, Navy SEALs left him behind. That part is material finding number 2, and it's classified, so it's not like out there, but everybody knows about it. So
Okay.
it's 2 parts.
Lori, does Slavinsky know how you feel about him?
Oh, sure. I saw him when I was there, they had a dinner and I ran into him. I was just circling because one of my friends was supposed to meet me there and he didn't. So I was just kind of wandering around myself, and I passed by him a couple times. And one of the times I passed him, he kind of we locked eyes, and he did one of those little, like a very small grin and a nod, like, like you might do to an associate or somebody you maybe knew a little bit. And I just looked daggers at him, like basically F you with my eyes, you know. And then at they had the ceremony, the unveiling ceremony, but it was at the next day when we were going to be able to tour it on our own. And there was the group of us were standing there, and he and his wife came. She went beeline away from us. He went around, and I was standing there. And as he passed me, I just looked at him and asked him, "How do you sleep at night?" And he just lowered his eyes and kept going. So he knows. He knows for sure. I'm sure he's seen the podcast. He's heard, whatever, because I am not pulling any punches anymore. The guy's a liar. All the people around him, that Chris Cassidy, the one who's the president he's involved in all this bull crap. There are other SEALs there on the board. And there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on. Slavinsky is now president of the Medal of Honor Society, and he came about that position by basically he and another couple of Navy SEALs overrunning the society and like basically taking it over, and he's basically installed as the president now, because this museum wanted artifacts that the society had, but at the time that he wasn't president, the society wanted nothing to do with it. And so they installed him, and now he runs it. And, there's a whole lot of stuff. There's lots of stuff now. He's trying to be relevant. I just got notice of a master class in business leadership or whatever that he's part of. And I'm like, masterclass, you might want to distance yourself from this guy because he's nothing but a liar. He was not a leader. And even after John, he committed war crimes. I mean, there were things that should have disqualified him from the Medal of Honor being considered for him. And then war crimes was one of them. And the other was he was PNG'd at DevGru. They didn't want him there. He was not welcome. And if you're PNG for any group, you're not qualified to be up for a Medal of Honor either. Like you have to be in good standing, so all this stuff. But they wanted to put him up for the Medal of Honor, so all of a sudden they were like, "Oh, okay, just kidding, you're not PNG'd anymore." So yeah, there's a lot. I could talk for 5 hours or 5 days about John. I could probably do the same for all these corrupt, evil Navy SEALs.
What has all of this done to you? How have you dealt with all this emotionally? One thing after the other, these sucker punches, over the past 23 years.
So I thought that I had dealt with it pretty well. Even my husband thought like, yeah, I think you're pretty good at first. You don't know that you're in a dark place until you're out the other side and you look back and go, "Oh, wow, I guess I wasn't." So I want to say 2 or 3 years now. I met Eric Lionheart online with Facebook, whatever. He was a combat controller. And I won't that story's I won't get into the whole bit of the story, but ultimately I went on an ayahuasca retreat, and I was able to at least, so the Navy SEALs had power over me that they didn't know they had. Like anytime I heard anything, it was immediately the world needs to know what they did. They know that they're lying, that they're bad people, instead of focusing on what John did do. So I was able to like release that from myself, and I was in a really good place. Like, whatever, dudes, you do what you want to do. And then, of course, the Medal of Honor things came, the museum came about, and so I probably need another one. But right now, I'm not going to shut up about it, about how they've totally disrespected John. I will continue to, I do pray for them. I talk to my pastor, like, how do I don't know if I have a path or know how to forgive them. I think I'm kind of finding my way, especially after this whole, the tragedy with, it's not even a tragedy, the disgusting assassination of Charlie Kirk, and the things that like our pastor said today. And I haven't heard I haven't listened to his wife speak, but I heard of some of the things she said. And maybe there's forgiveness, but there's, as my pastor said, I can forgive and pray for them and still tell the truth. Like they don't have to not coexist.
Right.
And so I do pray for their, I feel like they have no souls, that the devil has them and has it. And I pray that they get them back before they pass from this earth, because I don't think they'll be liking it much then after that. But so I do pray for them. And then in another thought, I could be like just sitting there thinking about, oh man, I should have said that on the podcast, or whatever, but they can coexist. I can pray for them and still speak the truth.
That's right. That's right. And forgiving somebody doesn't mean you have to be their friend or hang out with them or that kind of thing.
100%. Yeah.
So,
and I know they keep saying, the forgiving someone isn't about them, it's about you. And, maybe if I can, and I feel like I'm inching closer to that, but, and maybe I'll be like, wow, why didn't I do this sooner? But I guess you can't do it until you're ready to do it.
yeah. Right.
And I probably would have been ready years ago, but they just keep on yanking me back in.
I know. It's something else. And that's why I feel for you and your family so much. What else, Lori? Anything else that you'd like to maybe say before we wrap it up?
Just that, John was an amazing guy, but as with your own brother, he isn't one of a kind. He is, but he isn't, if you know what I mean. Like, he was one of a kind. Nobody would ever be another Chapman, but a lot of these guys are cut from the same cloth, and most of them are good. I feel like I've only maybe met, I don't know. I don't even know if I'm sure there are bad seeds in all of them, but the Navy SEALs are the bad ones. They have the most, and I do believe there are good ones, but they're being overrun by the really bad ones. And I mean really, really bad. I would like that people, Americans especially, don't just because someone says I'm a Navy SEAL, or well, no one else would say anything else. The combat controller wouldn't say I'm a combat controller, and a Delta guy wouldn't say I'm Delta. So if somebody says I'm a Navy SEAL, then you don't have to automatically like, oh my God, my heart flutters. I mean, true heroes don't call themselves out. They don't say they're heroes. The true hero says, I was just doing my job, or I'm a chef. So maybe not. Maybe don't look for an earthly God to follow, because the SEALs are not the ones to follow. None of us are, but I look at all these TV shows about SEALs and the movies about SEALs, and everybody's buying into how great they are. And I'm not saying that they don't do great things, and some of them are really good, but it's just elevating them to a point where people look at them almost godlike, and they shouldn't.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And read about the true heroes, and the Roy Benavides and those other people, and Mark Forrester and John Chapman and Rob Gutierrez, these people who have done really, really great things
Hmm.
for real.
My family is very thankful for you and your family and for John. And I'm sorry for what y'all continue to go through. And I'm thankful that you are outspoken and loud sometimes and opinionated. And my dadgum, you just want the truth and you want to
That's
hold
my
people
station in our
accountable.
family.
So, now I don't know that I've heard every podcast you've been on, but I've definitely heard most of them. I'm sure
Hmm.
there's some out there that I've missed, but whenever I see you again, I'll listen to it, of course, and hopefully we meet one day in person. I just wish the best for you and your family. You've got Kevin, the oldest, and you got Tammy as the youngest, I think, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Your mom's still alive, and then your dad died in. Did he die in 2005?
4.
Four. Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, y'all been through it, and I
Yeah.
just I just hope that nothing else. There's not another sucker punch, that comes out there.
Well, apparently I should be prepared. So, because I thought it was over after the Medal of Honor crap, but
Yeah.
anyway, I thank you for sharing Mark, and you know, it's not, I don't know, I didn't ask you how you felt writing your book about Mark, but if it was therapeutic for you, but I
Hmm.
feel like their stories have to be told,
Yep.
so people can learn, hey, this is what it's like to be in a firefight or whatever happens. Everybody needs to hear and
Yeah.
see the effects that it has on the families.
Yeah, because you've got the visible things, like you're going to see visibly John's awards, you're going to see his wife and kids. Now, of course, they suffer too that nobody knows. But then you've got the other people, the rest of the family that maybe is not seen as much, like you and and the rest. Same way with Charlie Kirk. Nobody's seen his parents hardly, but they're
Mm-mm,
suffering too. So there's a lot of
absolutely.
people that are affected more so than we see. Just in the news or in person.
Right. And I don't know if you found it. I imagine that you did. Because I said one time, or maybe more than once, that there seems to be in our society, in our culture, there seems to be an unwritten rule, if you will, that if a person dies and there are parents and there are siblings, that the siblings are almost expected to be there for the family, be there for the parents, do it, to be the support system holding up the parents. But there's no one back there holding up the siblings, you know what I mean? So you have to support the parents and a spouse if there is one in their families while you're suffering too. And
Yeah,
I'm
I've
I'm
heard a few
happy.
people talk about that. I haven't had to deal with the spouse part though, so that's
Yeah.
it since Mark wasn't married.
But did you feel like it was your responsibility to be there for your parents?
I don't know. I guess if I look at it, probably so, but I've been so dead set on like learning everything I can about Mark and about his time deployed and about his death and running the foundation that I don't look at it that way, I guess, but that maybe that's how it is.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you're right. The siblings are in a unique spot where there's not that support for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. Yep. I know my sister was forgotten at the funeral, and my dad stood up and said, "Hey, there's Tammy too."
Oh
And it
my.
wasn't, obviously it's not on purpose.
Yeah,
No one
yeah,
can, there's going to be oversights. It's just unfortunate that, she was the oversight. Um, that's
yeah.
painful, but
Well,
it
and you and I
happens.
are part of a community that's small, so it is a blessing. I think at least that the controllers, yeah, I know, at least in my case, they've done a great job of keeping in touch with our family.
Hmm.
Usually, I may be the one that maybe they contact more. I guess I've kind of become more of the POC, I guess. But
Yeah,
I'm thankful that we're part of a small community. That's
me
that's
too.
been fantastic.
Me too. And for us, it's like there are a couple who contact mom more, and or Kevin, and then there are some that Kenny and I are friends with, so we talk to them more often too. But I was reading in your book and you mentioned Ish, and I'm like, oh, I know Ish. I mean, I only met him a couple of times, but he has quite a story too. But I have trouble with the time frames of like who was old enough to know this person or that person. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, it was I didn't make the connection between Mark and Ish until your book. So
Huh. Yeah. Yeah. And like I met Mike West, maybe for the first time last year at the event in Odessa, Texas. I think that was the first time I met him, or at least that I
oh,
remember.
nice.
But I know that he, was good friends with John.
Yeah, great person.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. It's a small community, and they really do. They look out for their own.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so thankful. Well, Lori, it's been my pleasure. Thank you for talking with me for so long.